And
All right, welcome back to the Coaching Collective podcast. I always stuff this up because I reckon I say this at the start of every video and I say I don't know what episode it is, but I don't know what episode it is.
I mean,
But nonetheless, we are graced with the presence of Andy Miller, the what was it, 20 season A 2024 IFBB Oz Pro winner. So in the bodybuilding category, one is a lightweight. Is it lightweight?
Light heavy.
Light heavy. There you go. I always get that mixed up. I'm always like, is it light heavy or lightweight?
I always call light heavy middleweight. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously thank you for jumping on. You know, we thought why not? We did Jackson Guerin, who won Classic a couple of weeks ago. So we thought, why not get you on? Have a chat. You've got an interesting story. So if you want, take it away, introduce yourself, and then I guess we'll jump into it.
Yeah, well, I guess my bodybuilding adventure started close to 28 years ago, which gives you an indication of how
Yeah.
fucking old I am. So I remember joining a gym when I was like 15 years old. So my last year of high school or secondary school in the UK, as people can probably tell by my accent.
Mhm.
And there was a gym like half a mile down the road from school. And I remember going in there. I can remember it like it was yesterday. I remember going in there after school, still my school uniform, getting changed, and the lady that owned the gym kind of showed me and my mate around how to do some exercises and stuff. And we were in there about 3:30, 4 p.m., just sort of fucking around as you do when you're about 15 years old in a gym. And the guys started rolling in after work to train. And it just seemed that as time passed, that as the guys came in, they just got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Mhm.
And by sheer coincidence, something like half the British powerlifting team happened to train in that gym just half a mile down the road from my school. So I was really, really fortunate that from day one, I had guidance from some of the best in the country around sort of weight training and powerlifting. And they could see I was keen because I kept coming back day after day, week after week, and they quickly kind of took me under their wing.
Mhm.
So there wasn't really any kind of propensity for me to make silly mistakes because if I was seen to be doing something, they would grip me, right? And this was, like I say, nearly 30 years ago, back before people had, AirPods in their ears and were listening to music, right? It was like an open gym. So if someone saw me doing something stupid in the corner of the gym, I'd quickly get screamed at from across the other side to stop being so fucking stupid, right? And it was like tough love, but it was good at the same time. And I remember that first day in the gym as the guys started getting bigger and bigger and bigger when they came in. There was a guy that happened to train there that was like the UK bench press champion, came in. And I remember I remember benching and you were like struggling to lift the bar. You were lucky if you had like 5 kilos either side of the bar, right? Must have weighed like 55 kilos myself. This guy came in and benched 6 plates for reps. And straight away watching him do that, I was hooked. I was like, I have to do that. I have to be big like these guys. So I was just really, really fortunate to have that level of talent and expertise like available to me from day one. So in my sort of late teens and sort of 15, 16, 17 years old, I was a powerlifter originally. So won like the British Championship a couple of times, European Championship once, came second in the world in Finland back in like 2002, I think it was. It's quite a while ago.
Still 22 years. Crazy.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And then I think I got like tendonitis in my knees at one point from squatting heavy, putting the wraps on too tight around your knees.
Mm-hmm.
And I started training a bit lighter, and then started getting into bodybuilding. And there were a couple of like good national level bodybuilders in that gym at the same time who also took me under their wing, who I trained with. And I think I was with them for like a couple of years. Did my first show in 2004. It was like the EFBB South Coast or something like that.
Mhm.
Qualified for nationals, but it coincided with like my last year at university.
Mhm.
And it kind of got to the point where it's like, well, bodybuilding isn't going to pay the bills. Not at that point anyway. It was sort of making them.
Mhm.
When I left university, joined the Air Force, and I was in the Air Force for like 8 years, which was great. Like had a massive career across defence. Got a chance to work with the Army, the Navy, the Marines. Got to do some stuff in central government. at the time, like the UK as well as Australia was deployed in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I got to do 2 operational tours, got to do a whole bunch of stuff in like counter narcotics, counter terrorism, strategic kind of or military strategic level of government. Like it was really, really good. And I was in there for about 8 years, I think. But during that 8 years, obviously bodybuilding training kind of took a back seat. And it was largely kind of, cardio and endurance based training.
Mhm.
And then as you become more senior, I joined as a commissioned officer, and as you become more senior as an officer, the job becomes more desk based. So sort of sat behind a computer working on a desk, less out and about in the field. So I thought, well, if I'm going to sit behind a desk, I'd rather do it on my terms and get paid a bit more money for it. So I left the armed forces and started working in professional services and consulting in regard to security. Did that. I think I was working in like central London for like 2.5 years, and then got a job offer to carry on in the same sort of profession, but this time work out Wellington, New Zealand. So I actually moved from London all the way to New Zealand, and I was there for just under 2 years, I think, working there. Got married there to my wife, who's also a Brit. She came with me. We had one kid there, and even though he's got a British passport, he insists on calling himself a Kiwi because he was born in New Zealand. Hopefully he'll change that when he gets a bit older. He realizes what that means. And then the other one, my youngest son, was conceived there, but then was born in Australia. So after 2 years, I got a job offer over the ditch to work in Melbourne, and we moved over to Melbourne. Had the second kid, and that was when I first started competing in the Pro League, or the Australian IFBB Pro League.
How old
I
were
think
you?
that's my first show. Oh, how old would I have been then? What was that, like 2019? So like 37, 38, 37, I think.
Mhm.
And I did the Vic Championships. So
Mhm.
competed as a light heavyweight in the Vic Championships.
Mhm.
Came third, I think, which was quite good. Like my first show in Australia to get a placing.
Yeah.
And then I decided to take some time out. It was after that show that I started working with my coach, actually. Up until that point, I was either kind of just getting free advice from people that I was training with, or just kind of figuring it out myself. And that was when I started working with a coach. So we decided to. I remember, sorry, the show, when the show finished in Vic.
Mhm.
Whilst we were in Melbourne, I got a job offer to move up to Brisbane. We only lived in Melbourne for like 9 months total. So I moved. I think it was like a week after the show had finished. We moved from Melbourne all the way up to Brisbane. So I decided not to do the nationals because there was like a bit of disruption in terms of moving job and house and everything. And took some time out. And then COVID obviously hit, which, there were a couple of like false starts in terms of doing shows there, because, you'd start your 15, 16 week prep, and then, a few weeks in, some of the shows were getting cancelled. So there was that like 2 year sort of period, wasn't there, where there
Yeah.
wasn't a great deal going on. So I managed to do some off-season stuff, but then what with gyms being closed, there was quite a lot of disruption, in terms of training and diet and stuff. So it was really difficult to kind of be consistent during that 2 year period. And then I think the next show I did was the 2022 show. I think it was out of which was the Queensland, the state show there. Um, and I think if I can remember rightly, I think I won my weight category. And then when I went to nationals, I didn't place, and that was in the light heavy class.
Yeah.
And then the feedback from the judges was like, "Hey, you got really good shape. Everything is put together really good." And this feedback has been consistent throughout. They've always said the overall kind of shape and symmetry and balance is really, really good. You just need to work on some of your conditioning. So I came back in 2023. Came in a little bit tighter, and I won the state one again, and I think I came second at the national one in 2023. And then same feedback again, right? Coming tighter, and then came back in 2024. Did the state show again, won the weight class, didn't get the overall, but still went down to Melbourne anyway to do the national show, and that was when I won the
Pro card.
the light heavyweight, and then obviously the overall as well. But just coming in better condition each time, I think, just taking that feedback on board. And then I think having consistently doing shows every year, I think gives you enough time to put on a little bit of muscle, but then also gives you not enough time to get too fat as well. So,
Mhm.
it was like 6 months off season, 6 months prep, something like
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
it means that you can improve size wise in between shows, but you can also improve in conditioning. And I think, to be honest, that was probably one of the things that worked in my favor this year was that I did the stage show at the end of 2023, the season
Yeah.
B one, and
Yeah.
then sort of like that finished in like November or something, and then in
Yeah.
January I started prep for season A 2024. So I kind of went from one
Oh,
prep straight into
to the
another,
next.
and
Okay. I didn't know
didn't get
that.
fat in between. So I had like a
Yeah.
head start, and that prep where I won my pro card, funnily enough, was like the easiest prep. I don't say it was easy, but it was easier than others. Like I didn't really feel like I had to suffer as much because I was in good shape.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like I was getting stronger up until maybe 3 or 4 weeks out, and then even then I kind of like just pulled back a little bit on some of the intensity just to avoid injury.
Yeah.
It went really, really well. I had no stress, and I think this is important, right? I had no stress in my life outside of the gym. Like work went really, really well. Like I got a good wife and a good family that were very supportive as well. And I think that kind of lack of stress and the ability to go through prep without getting any injuries and have everything just work perfectly kind of is a good recipe for success.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like we didn't make any changes to the diet. I think for like it was like a 16-week prep, and the diet was the same for like the first 8, and then even then after that it was just minor adjustments. There wasn't anything drastic
Mm.
really happened, just enough to kind of keep progress moving
Yeah.
along.
Did you find in between those two preps that like you put on more size or anything like that, or was it just more enough so the 2023 shape was good and everything was pretty much on par? It was just the conditioning was the issue. So having that extra time to diet again, was that like the biggest change, or did you reckon you still put on size?
I think I put on like a kilo. I
Okay.
think, but I don't think it was during in between the shows because in between the
Mm.
shows it was probably a bit more downtime. By the time
Yeah.
you've reverse diet out of prep just to kind of get your body back to being responsive again,
Mm.
then it was time to sort of start prep all over. But I
Yeah.
think because my strength was increasing for like 12 weeks throughout prep,
Yeah.
because you know what it's like, you really dial in terms of the food that you're eating. You've got some enthusiasm around training because you've got this goal to kind of aim for.
Yeah.
I think I kind of gained a bit of muscle in the first,
Yeah.
2/3 of the prep, to be honest.
I feel like that's something that's really disregarded by a lot of people, not realizing that they can still at least put muscle on when they're even in prep, or at least in the early days of a prep. And I feel like it's something that people just think it's like, oh no, you're in prep, you're in a deficit, you're dieting. It's like there's no way I can get better in between, but like you definitely can.
Well, no one,
Yeah,
I believe it's just the intensity at which you approach a prep through training and nutrition. Most people aren't going to uphold that kind of approach throughout the entirety of the year. So it's inevitable that you're going to make improvements, especially if you are assisted, because
Yeah.
you don't have to deal with that increased risk of muscle loss via hormone down, whatever it might be. You know what I mean? But yeah, anyway, go on. Yeah.
well, I think that's kind of what led me to it, right? I think the success was just two very good preps in a row without any disruption, any stress,
Yeah.
any injuries, any setbacks.
Huge difference.
Um,
Mhm.
and sometimes I think that's just down to a bit of luck, right? Especially the stuff that happens outside the gym.
Yeah,
There's a whole bunch of stuff in life that's sometimes out of your control in terms of
for
like
sure.
work or your relationships or whatever.
Yeah.
Not having to deal with any of that shit for almost 12 months is pretty good, right? That's pretty
Pretty
lucky. So
decent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are
yeah, I'm not
you?
under any disillusion that there wasn't an element of luck to the success, but I think if you ask anybody that's won, consistently, they'd probably agree with that as well. As sometimes you just need the cards to kind of fall in your favor.
Yeah, for sure. Who are you coached by at the moment?
Phil Viz,
Yeah, I
I
thought it was
told
that. You know
you.
what's funny? Before I asked, I was gonna ask, then I was like, I think it's Phil Biz. Have you
yeah,
been coached?
yeah,
Have you been coached by him since 2019?
yeah. So
Mm,
I contacted him maybe 2 weeks before I did that state show in 2019 because
okay.
I always found with prep, I could get to like the 3 or 4 week out point, and then I couldn't get any further. And I think you're just not in that right mindset to be objective in terms of what it is that your body needs.
Mm,
And I just couldn't, sometimes it's just easier to make someone else make the decision in terms of do you carry on pushing? Do you stop and refeed? Like
mm,
giving that kind of responsibility across to someone that's got a lot of experience and a
Yeah.
keen eye, I think just takes that burden off of you. And it was the same in that prep. It was going really, really well. And then I kind of got to that last bit where you were still kind of hanging on to that layer of fat or whatever that makes the difference between a good physique and a really great one. And that was when I reached out to him. And he actually did my peak week for that show, and kind of helped me with that. And then I've been working with him ever since. And I think that's a good thing as well, right? Is if you pick a coach, firstly, get one that's got some credibility, but then secondly, just kind of stick with them for a few years,
That's what I
because
was going to ask you.
it's going to take, I think it's going to take a coach a couple of shows to figure you out. And then if you're progressing, then there's a variable there, right? Because that means the next show, well, your body's not the same. One, you're at least a year older, which plays a part, especially when you get to my age. But then also you've got more muscle. So like your body's going to respond a bit different. I think if you're just jumping around from coach to coach, you're probably doing yourself a bit of disservice.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I was going to say as well. It's like it's good that like you managed to at least stick it out, because like I feel like it's look, at the same time it's loyalty with a lot of people, but I feel like especially within prep, a lot of people really do get with their coaches. Like most, I'd say almost 90% of people would have been in your position. They would have maybe not the 2019 show, but maybe the next show, and they wouldn't have done as well as they wanted, and they would have said, "I'm jumping to a different coach." Like, and that's just what people
that
are
makes
like
no
these
sense.
days. Like, but you do have to understand, it's like you do one prep and it's like every prep's different, and you've got to understand that like it's a lot of the time it does come down to like client application, but as well as like the body changing. You're right, like even between shows, like I had a girl compete on the weekend for bikini, and it's just like in between shows, and Michael had a guy in men's physique, and it was just like we're doing probably completely different things between now and nationals for them. I don't know, is that what you're doing, Michael? Because I haven't seen much from it.
Yeah, I'm doing not completely
Yeah,
different, but it will be
but like
different.
majority, yeah. And it's like even that's a big difference maker as well. And I feel like jumping from coach to coach between season, it's like what's going to happen? It's like it's like they're taking the gamble on you again if you do that.
Yeah.
So like it just makes
I
it a
think
little
as
bit
well,
harder.
like the thing I like about working with him as well, he kind of believes in you, or at least he believed in me. So from the very early stages, he would sort of say, "Hey, I think you can get a pro card. I'm pretty confident we can get it." And he's never faltered from that kind of
Yeah,
outlook. He's always been really consistent. It was him and it was my wife that persuaded me to go to nationals after I took that loss at the state show earlier this year, because I got to the overall, got beaten by a super heavyweight in a somewhat contestable decision, which is obviously the way that the sport is sometimes, and kind of felt sorry for myself because I'd lost out to super heavyweights on previous shows. So I was in the mindset that any effort to sort of win an overall was going to be futile because they're always going to go for the bigger guy. But it was him, and especially my wife, that kind of told me just to suck it up. You look great. You don't realize how good you are and the potential you've got. Like, let's just make some improvements and see how it goes. But having a coach that kind of believes in you but then doesn't sugarcoat it or blow smoke up
yeah,
your ass for no
yeah,
reason, I think is important. I mean, and he's been pretty committed to me in the sense that every show I've done, bearing in mind he's like based on the east coast of the states,
yeah.
right?
In the
So
States,
every
yeah,
show I've done, the times difference. He stayed up and he's like checking in on me in the middle of the night. Like he won't sleep that night, and I
yeah,
think that's quite a bit of commitment, to
yeah,
kind of
for
to kind
sure.
of do that as well. So
Yeah,
I can't I
no, it's
can't
good.
fault him.
Yeah,
I've
and
heard
it's
I've heard good
it's
things about Phil.
yeah,
I've
so
heard
would I.
bad things from people that don't like that he's too honest.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean he's what is it like? He's like from New Jersey, isn't he, or something? So
Yeah, something like that.
he's
Yeah,
calls
they're
it hot.
quite
Yeah, a
they're
bit
quite
funny.
passionate people, right, with that Italian heritage. So
they're just
probably
honest.
rub some people up the wrong way, but
Yeah,
he's very knowledgeable. And I think there's a misconception that he tries to do weird shit with people. But I tell you, look at my diet and my program. It's like there's nothing in it that looks strange. It's very, very, very basic. So
yeah,
Yeah, no, and
yeah,
I was going to say as well, one of the things, like obviously we just touched on, was the belief in the coach, the belief the coach has in you. We had this conversation because I think that's very, very important, because that's almost recognizing that the investment on the coach's end is going to be the same as the investment on your end as well.
yeah,
yeah,
And when the investment falters on your end, because you obviously get clients that their investment falters, where
mm,
they start to think, well, I'm just going to have some downtime, or I don't know if I can achieve this. Having the coach that pulls you back in line in those moments is
mm,
important. And I've seen athletes go to other coaches who do have the potential, and the coaches don't care because they have plenty of other. The coach don't care because they have plenty of other athletes in a similar position. And they might just not have that care factor there, and that's where it can sort of fall away. Because obviously, I'm sure you've had your moments of doubt. Well, you had a moment of doubt that you just explained, but I'm sure plenty of them where he's just said to you, just pick yourself back up and
keep your head down,
keep going.
Just get it done.
It's helped to have him there, I think. So it's helped to have my wife there as well. My wife is, I mean, her and I started dating when we were back in the UK, sort of. Oh, how far was it going? Like nearly 10 years ago now, I think. And you know, she did she did a show with me when I was in the UK before I came over here. And, you know, she's kind of been very encouraging and supportive throughout, you know, all these times that I've gone through prep, both here and in New Zealand. I competed when I was in New Zealand for the 2 years I was there. You know, she went to every show, went through every prep with me. And at not one point is she ever kind of suggested that I should quit. She's always been the opposite. And I think one of the strengths of having somebody like that is it kind of encourages you to stick to the plan as well, right? So I feel like if I'm going to miss a training session or I'm going to cheat in my diet, I'm doing a disservice to her because she's been so supportive, and I'm doing a disservice to my coach because he's been so supportive. Sometimes the feeling of letting other people down is a good thing because it kind of encourages you to kind of stick to the path, you know.
Have you had any moments that you've, just as you're a little bit older, where you've questioned moving forward with it, or are you still
like all the time.
I can imagine.
I think that's fine, right? It's like it shows some humility to have some doubt. I think that's fine. I think what makes the difference between, you know, someone that's successful and someone that doesn't is they carry on despite the feeling of doubt. Like you have to be logical in the sense that you think, okay, well, it's a sport in which not everyone can succeed. You know, there is an element of hard work to being successful, but there's also an element of talent, the same as anything else, right? So talent's obviously something that either you have or you don't, something you're born with or you don't have. So I think it's fine to have some doubts, like, do I have the talent? Do I have the work ethic to succeed? But it's good. I think one of the things that certainly kept me going was, especially when I started competing over here in Australia, is every show I did, I sort of went up a notch. You know, like the first time I won the state, the second time I won the state and came second at nationals, and then the third time, obviously, I did the whole lot, right? So those small kind of little progress points, I think, kind of inspires you to keep going as well. If you were going in and, you know, you're going down the rankings or staying still, I think that might play a part, right? Making you be a bit stagnant. But for me, just those small progressions are enough to kind of keep me up, which is pretty much what bodybuilding is about, right? It's not you don't make giant leaps, you make small amounts of progress with a few setbacks here and there. And the sum of your progress exceeds the setbacks.
I was going to say when
you go.
It's a little bit of a change of topic, so you can go if you want.
Oh no, I was just going to say it's not uncommon to see athletes get worse from show to show. I've seen it happen multiple times to a point where they do eventually. But generally, it's those who are genetically inferior. Generally, it's those pushing more boundaries as well. Thinking that by pushing those boundaries, they're going to become in better and better when they don't realize it's just putting, well, and so many things to consider, but just very simplistically speaking, like the stress that's putting on their body is just distracting from their progression, the lack of the off seasons. You see serial competitors who look progressively worse. I've seen guys do like 5-6 seasons in a row or preps in a row, and they don't look any better on prep 6 than they did on prep 1. And the reality is, like, you see these guys as well going because they want to turn pro, or usually it's just they want to turn pro. And I often say, because I coach predominantly younger guys, so they're quite new to the scene, and I say you don't really want to win a pro card by luck. Like, so it's just not a method of, like, it is persistence to a degree, but the goal should be to develop a pro level physique, and then at that point, inevitably you're going to win it on the right day. But there's no point in winning a pro card if you don't deserve a pro card.
No, no.
Because then what are you going to do with it? You're done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bodybuilding's
Yeah.
at that point. What are you going to do? Go to a pro show and sit at the bottom? Yeah.
And to be honest, that's one of the things that's kept me going after the show,
Mm,
after that recent win,
mm,
is the opportunity that I now have. Bearing in mind, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of bodybuilding before I'm a competitor, right? I've been a fan for nearly 30 years.
mm.
And now I have an opportunity to compete in the sport that I've been a fan of since I was a kid.
You get some
Mhm.
So
people that you
I feel for
watch.
me, like, if to at least not give it your best effort and a try, I feel like you're doing a disservice to not only yourself, but then all those other men that I was on stage with in the overall. Like, if I do nothing with the pro card, I feel like it's unfair. I feel like it should have been given to one of them to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you've got no intentions of using it, this is just my opinion,
Mm,
then you shouldn't be in the overall. I think it should go to someone who wants to do something with it. And
Yeah.
that's what motivates me at the moment, is this
Mm.
fantastic opportunity that I've got to participate in something.
Yeah.
You know, whether I win or not, whether I'm successful or not, I'm not too
Mm.
fussed. For me, it's just that, the opportunity that, you think of the hundreds of guys that compete every year for that pro card and they never ever get it. And now I have an opportunity to do something with it. I feel very, very grateful for that.
Yeah. I was
mhm.
gonna say,
What is it? Oh, you go first. Because if we
yeah,
go
I was
into
gonna
the
say,
topic, it's going to be longer.
yeah, it'll be a rambling
Yeah.
tangent, and then we'll forget about it. I was gonna say, when you stepped foot on the stage for the overall, because I remember me and Michael actually just left the show because we had a dinner to go to, and we were watching it in the car.
It's actually funny just before
It's
you go.
actually, yeah, you go,
Yeah,
you go.
we were watching it and and then they put you in the middle and James like he's won 100%. He's won 100%. And I'm like, James, they always give it to the supers. Like the super's going to win it. And he's like, he's won it. Like 100% he's won it. And I'm
Mm,
like, man, like I don't know. And then he won and then you won it. Like
Yeah,
I was so happy they didn't give it to a super heavy, especially because even just from just this talk, just conditioning wise, like it was night and day.
mm,
mm,
Like night and
yeah.
day. Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was just
Yeah.
like I remember watching it and just thinking, and it was hard because you look at it and you do think like you're smaller compared to those guys, even super heavyweight, whatever it may be. But like, it's not so much that like I feel like people just see it as like with amateur ranks, it's a lot harder, right? Because you look at it and you've got these people in the overall, and it's like this person's small and this person, but it's not the fact that the person's smaller because like they're not matched. It's just more like you're just the bigger version of the smaller weight class. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So it's very hard to
Mm,
like sit there and be like, he can't win it just because he's not bigger. It's like you don't know
mm,
what's capable of. And I feel like a lot of people within amateur ranks also, when they go watch the amateur shows, really forget that 212 exists
yeah.
because like that's when I was watching it, I was like to Michael, I'm like, he's the best there. I'm like, that's just pro card 212. It's not pro card open bodybuilding.
Mm.
Mm.
Like,
Unless you
so
want to.
it's just one
Yeah.
of those. Well, yeah, unless you want to go to open. What do you want to do? Do you
I
think
don't know. I'm
you'll
kind of the mindset that I would like to go to open. Bearing in mind as well, I grew up with a generation where there was no
no
212,
212?
just
Yeah,
men's open. So
yeah,
I like the 212 because
yeah.
you can compare apples with apples.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel that if you win a title at 212, I think there's like a little caveat. It's like,
Yeah,
Mr.
but
Olympia, and then underneath it's
yeah,
like under 212.
212.
It's
Yeah,
like not
it's
quite the
true.
same.
Yeah,
But again, like, no discredit to them, right? Because I
yeah,
think, like, conditioning wise, it's a fucking tough class.
for
The guys
sure.
look amazing.
Yeah, but I was gonna say when you stepped foot on that stage for the overall, did you think you were gonna win?
No, no, no idea. So I don't know if you've been backstage at that Vic show, but they got
Yeah.
no fucking mirrors backstage whatsoever.
Yep.
Whereas
Yeah.
in the
They had
Queensland
one
one,
on
they
Sunday.
do, right?
Yeah.
So I remember I checked in with my coach at like 9 a.m. or something, like 8:30 a.m. just after I tanned. And then I went again in that venue in Vic. They've got that little bar area, haven't they, in the upstairs above the entrance.
Yeah.
I went and found a couch and I led on there from about 9 a.m. to about 3 p.m. before we went on stage. And I'd get up every now and then, I'd have some food, a little bit of water, go to the toilet or whatever, go for a walk just to kind of get the fluid moving around. But I didn't see myself, that entire time. And then even when you go backstage, you strip off, and you can see your tan. I'm like, well, my tan looks great, and you can see like your quad. You're like, oh, my quad looks all right, but you can see yourself.
Yeah.
But you can see everybody else, right?
Yeah.
And especially not so much with the weight class, but in the overall, everybody looked fucking really good because obviously they've just won a national title in their weight class.
Yeah.
So I can see everyone else, and especially Dave, the super heavyweight guy, right? The guy was a fucking
Huge.
monster.
Yeah.
So I can see him. I'm like, wow, like this guy looks fucking awesome. Like he looked really, really good. So in my mind, I'm like, well, it's him, right? It's this guy. This guy's a clear winner because everybody had some conditioning. He just had that monstrous amount of size on him, and you're kind of drawn to looking at him. But I think when we went on the stage, obviously they bring you on, don't they, in weight cap order, so light, heavyweight, all the way through to super, which means that from lightweight through to super, which means that the light heavyweight is in the middle.
Yeah.
You're like the middle of the weight. So straight away I was in the middle of the stage. And they ran us through obviously the quarter turns, and I'm thinking, okay, well now is where they're going to move into the middle, and they didn't. And then they ran us through all the mandatories, and they kept me in the middle. And I remember the entire time the panel of judges were all looking at me in the middle. So I was sort of started thinking, maybe something's going on here. Like, why aren't they looking at that guy? Why are you looking at me? And I remember I'm trying to remember what the guy's name is. There's a guy that does a lot of the shuttling of competitors backstage. A guy called Mike. I think he's like a PT at one of the world gyms up on the Sunshine Coast.
Not too sure.
He was sat there. I want to say, I'm trying to find his name. His name's Mike something. Mike Dorm, maybe. I don't know. But he was. I was talking to him backstage, and he was like, "Hey, mate, you look fucking awesome. I think you got it." And then when I was on stage and I was doing the overall and going through all the mandatories, he was sat directly behind the judges. And I remember as I was posing, he was shouting out cues. So things like when you do your side chest, like I'll lower my front arm slightly down so you can see my obliques because I've got quite deep cut obliques.
Yeah.
But then I'd squeeze my obliques, but then I'd loosen my glutes. So I'd lose the striations in my glutes. So he would be shouting at me. He'd be like, abs, glutes, like keying me to keep everything nice and tight.
Yeah.
And I remember that we went through all the compulsories at the end, and the judges go, "Okay, gentlemen, relax." And you hear him shout out from behind the judges, "Don't you fucking relax, Andy!" Like that, shouting out to make sure I kept everything tight. And then after we did the one run through, the judges moved the super next to me. They didn't move me next to him. They moved him over to me, and that was when I sort of thought, "Oh, like it's close here." But even at that point, even right up until the very moment that they called my name, I still thought that the other guy had won it. So it was a shock. Like it didn't sink in until probably like when I got backstage, like 15, 20 minutes after what happened.
It's a cool story, man.
Yeah, it's nuts. I still remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So what's a plan from here with the pro shows?
So I just finished my rebound and like little maintenance phase. So it's like maybe 8 weeks out the show to kind of rebound, like another 8 weeks or so just to kind of recomp, just to hold everything where it is and kind of get myself back together again. And I just started the off season like 2 weeks ago, so as in like a bulk phase or whatever you want to call it.
Pushing food. Yeah.
But it was interesting. So the first week that I started the bulk, I threw in a whole bunch of extra food and lost the kilo. Like I lost weight because I kept it tight. Like I haven't fucking folded since the show. I haven't missed a meal, haven't missed a training session because just you feel so when you come out of a show with a win, you feel so motivated to carry on because you've got some return on your investment. You're like, fuck me, like if I'm faultless with my approach to this, I get rewarded for it.
Yeah.
So I haven't missed a beat. So I reverse dieted perfectly, got myself back to where I needed to be, did the maintenance phase to kind of get myself where I needed to be, but still kept really, really lean. And as soon as I threw that food in there, there's like fuel on the fire, right? Because metabolism sped up and I lost like a kilo the first week, but then gained like 4 back the second week. So I'm holding quite tight at the moment. Like I'm still really, really lean or quite lean. But you know, I guess the goal is to try and gain a decent amount of weight, like a good few kilos of muscle, I reckon, by about to the middle of next year. And then look to compete the end of 2025. So start dieting somewhere around June, July, maybe. And I'm in two minds as to what I'll do show wise. So the original thought was to go over in Europe. So in Europe, there's like there's like 3 weekends where there's a bunch of shows back to back. I think it's like
Is
Hungary,
that?
Prague, and Spain.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I thought that was gonna be
And
Prague
I
and
was
stuff.
thinking I could go back. It's like October, November. So
Yeah.
I was thinking I could go back around about that sort of time, do the 3 shows, and then my wife and kids would fly from Australia over to the UK, and I'd meet them there. And we'd sort of spend Christmas with
Yeah,
our
that'd be
family
good.
and friends, try and make that work.
Yeah.
But a lot of the guys that I've spoken to pro wise said like Europe could be a bit of a waste of time in terms of raising your, I guess, like your stock as a professional bodybuilder. The American
Yeah.
shows tend to
Shows are
be
bigger.
the place to
Yeah.
be. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm in two minds in terms of where I'll compete at the moment.
It's
But
see the only problem, well, not problem with that time of the year when you have like Hungary, Prague, and Spain is a lot of people come off the Olympia as well to
mm,
requalify. So it's good for you as well for stock because if you go in and you beat any of those Olympians, like why would your stock not go up?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
but then like if you lose, it's like you got nothing to lose. It's like, oh fuck, I lost to someone that was just at the Olympia. So like I feel like it's a bit of a you've got nothing to lose. But I understand when those pros are saying that because it's the American shows. Everyone always looks at those European shows and they see them as weaker shows, which I don't know why, because like the pros that are still doing it are quite good.
yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah.
just
It's a
not
pretty
top Olympian like proper. You know what I mean?
well. There's some good pros that can't get visas for the US that can
Exactly.
in Europe.
Mm.
So
Mm.
yeah, the talent's pretty good. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think the other thing for me is I need to box clever in terms of a professional career because I've got a limited amount of time I can kind of do this for being in
Yeah.
my early 40s. It's not like
Mm.
I've got another 10 years of this ahead of me.
Mm.
I don't think my marriage could survive another 10 years of
Yeah.
bodybuilding,
Prepping.
let alone my health.
Yeah.
Um, so I need to kind of get the most bang for buck. And it's not cheap,
Yeah.
right? To go, I'm just going to fly to Europe and jet around
Yeah.
Europe for a couple of months, whatever. And
Mm.
even the same, if you go to the States, it's an expensive
Yeah.
endeavor. So I need to consider what gives me the best impact in the shortest amount of time. So, but regardless of where I compete, I still feel that I need a little bit more size to the existing
Yeah.
frame in order to be competitive.
Mm.
But I don't think much. Like I
Mm.
weighed in at like 82 kilos
Of the show.
the morning of
So I was
finals,
about to
right?
ask
And
you that.
I think like 3 or 4 kilos on that frame, provided
Mm.
it goes to the right places, could look really good. I don't think I
Yeah.
need to be a
Much bigger.
particularly heavy bodybuilder. And then I do
No.
question sometimes when people tell you how much they weigh, I do wonder whether or not they're being a bit liberal with the estimates,
Mm.
Mm.
because I don't think sometimes they necessarily
What are you sitting at the moment, weight wise?
95.
Okay. I'm heavier than you. That's embarrassing.
I'm almost
Yeah.
heavier than him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That says it all. Yeah.
That's fucked.
But
Well,
then 95 kilos, I'm only 5'6", right? So 95 kilos
Yeah,
of
wow.
5'6"
still.
with
Yeah.
abs, and I got
Yeah, I was
veins
gonna say
still down my abs.
you must still be very lean.
Yeah, like I
95.
reckon I could diet for 4 weeks and probably get to the
What's
show.
like the heaviest off season you've had?
Oh, I did 104 like when the COVID era was
Yeah,
about.
okay.
I remember I did one,
Yeah.
but it was a fucking fat
Sloppy? Yeah,
104.
sloppy.
Like,
Yeah.
and I'm stronger now than what I was when I was
Back then.
9 kilos heavier. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like I think
Yeah.
there's a balance to be struck, isn't there, in terms of
Mm.
scale weight versus.
It's so funny to sit there and think to yourself, like you see all these people that want to compete and they just think heavier is better. And then you hear, like, I know you're 5'6", but still, like, not like to be 95 kilos and even 82 on stage and beat a super heavyweight that would have been about 115 probably. Like, it's crazy. That's 30 kilos. That's a lot of
Yeah,
size on someone. Like, but it's just what's your food at right now?
it's kind of low. I mean, I'm not that overly scientific in terms of like macros and stuff like
Mm,
that. Like, because I eat the same thing at the same
thing every
time every
day.
day.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to essentially
Track
dwell
if you're
on
doing that. Yeah,
well,
you
how
don't.
many carbs is that? It's like,
Especially if you're doing the same thing all the time.
yeah, like if I want to lose a bit of weight, I'll either, switch some of the red meat out for some leaner meat, maybe to drop
Yeah.
the calories from fat, or I might,
Yeah. Put
go
some
like
rice in
half a
that
cup of
or
rice instead of a cup of rice. Like, I
yeah.
think people love to overthink this sport, and often it's in the absence of talent. I'll over engineer some sort of program to try and make up for it.
Hmm.
I think it's so fucking simple what you have to do. Like knowing what to do is really, really easy. Doing it day in, day out when you don't feel like it is the hard bit.
Mm.
not knowing what
It's
to do. And it's
yeah, it's so
like my
true as well. Like just the same thing every day and you just pull from that. Like
yeah, but
yeah,
my training program hasn't changed for maybe 2 years. Like I
fuck.
pretty much perform the same exercises for the same body parts
Mhm.
every week because I found the rhythm.
It
I found
works.
something
Yeah.
that works,
Yeah.
and but the variable in the training is the intensity and the volume, not the exercises. You
Yeah.
know, and that's especially as you get older and you start to become, wear and tear can take its toll. I think if you found some exercises that give you a return on your investment of effort, but without causing any injury, then you
Mm,
stick with them, right? Like you
yeah.
find the things that work, and because my training program isn't designed around keeping me interested in going to the gym. It's what's
Hmm.
the maximum benefit that
Yeah.
my physique will get from the training. It doesn't give a shit about what I want. It cares about what my body needs in order to be better. The two things are different, which is why I think a lot of people like using a PT that changes their fucking program every 5 minutes is because they get bored. And I think that's fine for like a lifestyle person
Yeah.
because then consistency comes in because at least they're going to the gym. Consistency is
Mhm.
supreme
Key.
over
Yeah.
everything, right?
Yeah.
But for me, it's not. It's like the variable is like, can I just get stronger at these
Mm,
exercises that I know
yeah.
that work for me? Can I
Yeah.
do a few more reps? Can I add a
Can I
little
eat
bit
a
more
little bit
weight on the
more?
bar?
Yeah.
What's oh God, I went completely blank. I had a question regarding that too. Oh, what gym do you train at?
One of the world gyms. There's a
Hmm.
world gym in North Lakes up in Moreton Bay, so
Hmm.
Mm,
it's about like 45 minutes north of Brisbane.
Yeah,
okay.
okay. Yeah, because I'm always curious to what's up there because you don't hear much of it. But I guess there's a bit more up than probably people would expect.
Yeah, there's world gym around every fucking corner, isn't there? Up
Yeah,
in
I know.
Queensland, yeah.
Yeah,
But they're pretty good. They're well kitted out. I think they're kind of fairly priced for what it is that they offer.
Might have to look to move to Brisbane to the new Oxygen gym that's opening.
yeah,
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
yeah, but
I
it's
think
in a
the
bit of a rough
Oxygen.
area
Yeah.
Oh,
in Logan.
all right.
Yeah, so
I reckon anyone that lives in Queensland, as soon as you say Logan, they know.
Yeah,
yeah, because we got friends up there, and yeah, when they heard it was Logan, they're like, oh, okay. Because they've also got there's also Powerhouse Southside, which is meant to be quite good.
yeah. I've been there. That's really, really good. Yeah.
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 They're opening a
But
new one as well, I think. Somewhere.
again, I just think people, you need a few exercises, a few machines that work for each body part, and then that's it, right? Just
Dumbbell, barbell
concentrate on getting
trainings.
better at those.
Mhm.
Especially some of the machines, right? They're not a one size fits all thing. Some machines
Yeah.
work really well for people, and
Some
others
don't.
don't. Find the
Yeah.
ones that work for you and get good at it, and don't
Hmm.
don't fucking think about it too much.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
it is overthought. I feel like a lot of that stuff's really overthought these days. Gets too
Yeah,
scientific. It gets too scientific. I find myself just being a coach. It's like I find myself getting caught up sometimes in the science of things, and I'm like, now we got to put this movement in because, like, it's really going to
yeah,
hit it right here. And then I reflect on it. I'm just like, recently I've just been like, just throw a fucking lat pull down in.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
can you go
yeah, yeah,
wrong? Like it
yeah,
works. Like you know what I mean? So
Well, it's very easy to fall into that trap as coaches as well, where you do start overcomplicating it, and then as you actually move through it, you start to taper back more and more and more
yeah,
back to fundamentals. Because amongst people that you see progress the best, it is those that just apply the best. It's not those that have the most intricate programming, and
no,
everyone always assumes it's this, that, whatever. But the theme that I observe amongst those that progress the best for me is they're the best at applying consistently without
yeah,
question or
just
without
nail
needing
it
to
every
flip
day,
this and that on its head.
day in day out, same
Yeah.
thing,
yeah.
like a
I,
robot.
I think sometimes you have to reevaluate how you're executing an exercise. So for
Yeah.
me, for example, I think one of the strengths I had at the national show, and one of the things that tipped the balance in my favor was my back.
Mhm.
So whether I looked at it from the front, either like in the front relaxed or the front lat spread or the front double,
Yeah.
my lats popped out nicely from the waist. I'm lucky that mine come out from the hip,
Mm.
and then obviously from the back it had that good taper, but then also a decent amount of thickness to it.
It's got
And
that
I
dense.
think
That's the powerlifting.
I think so, yeah. But I,
Yeah.
I tell you, a lot of the thickness and the shape came from just the past couple of years where I think like legs and back are two body parts where you can push a lot of weight, but you don't necessarily have to. So back in particular, it's like taking your time to kind of move the weight with your back rather than thinking about, moving
Biceps,
the bar
forearms.
or whatever. Yeah, so driving your elbows in whichever direction that you're doing a pull down or a row, for example, and closing your eyes and visualizing imagining I'm on stage and I'm posing. What's my back look like now as I'm going through the exercise? I think that kind of helps as well. But I reduced the amount of weight that I lift on back massively
Yeah.
and concentrate on.
Did it just freeze?
Yeah.
Oh no. It might mean that it died.
Oh, his phone or laptop.
Yeah.
Pause the recording, just so you know it's paused.
Where did you get me to?
We got you to just before you were saying about like changing the movements. So like you were visualizing posing on stage for the movements.
Yeah. So just thinking about what
We are having some technical issues. All right. That one. I'll crop it out. It's okay.
I think it's happened again.
We might just have to wrap it up there.
Yeah.
Mm,
Just pause it and then we'll just run through.
Yeah.
All right, and again.
visualizing the movements on stage.
yeah. I think as well as the selection, right? So thinking, making sure that the exercises you select are comprehensive in terms of the way that the body moves. So
Yeah.
back, for example, right? Something where you pull down, something where you row from up high, something where you row from like chest height, and something where you row down low.
Down low.
Those 4 plane
Mhm.
movements tend to get most things like partial
Mm.
deadlifts. It just doesn't make too much, or even deadlifts in general, doesn't make too much sense to me in terms of a
Like a
range of
rack pull.
motion.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a bit of an ego lift to me,
Mhm.
rather than
Yeah.
one that's going to grow my back. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think just being careful of that, and it's the same for like quads, right? Like, what's the maximum amount of knee flexion that you can get through an exercise, and
Mm.
being able to perform that without jeopardizing your form or without suffering any injury,
Yeah.
which often means dropping the weight drastically, which
Yeah.
people don't fucking like, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's like I've sort of learned that as well because it's like I've started throwing myself on like a pendulum squat just because I know it's like the one squatting pattern where I can really get good knee flexion, and it's like honestly it's probably the only squatting pattern where I can get really good knee flexion.
Mm.
So it's just like finding the right things that just work and move well for I guess what you need to benefit from.
Mm. Yeah. Do you want to wrap it up there? Because connection
Yeah,
as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
All right, we'll wrap it up there, man. Thank you for jumping on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime,
Good to know,
gents.
man.
Thanks so much for your
Looking
time.
forward to seeing you on the pro stage.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, that'll be
Me
cool.
too.
Yeah. Thank you.